We are recording so that we have a full forum and we're able to move through effectively. It looks like it's 7 and we want to stay true to time and want to definitely honor your time for coming out and being a part of everything. And of course, if there are any problems with audio, as Thira has already let us know, we can accommodate as we go through. So just let me know, Thira, if it gets worse, please. That way we'll be able to accommodate, okay? All righty. Well, let's go ahead and get started. First of all, we'd like to say thank you so very much for being here today. For everyone that is joining here in our queue, we have the honor today to be joined by 3 distinguished panelists that are going to help us sort of kind of navigate into the wonderful world of going back to school. So welcome everyone. So glad you're here tonight. And if you're joining us for the very first time, we say welcome to you from the community here. And if you have been with us before, welcome back, because this space was built exclusively for you. And before we get started, a few quick things. Please mute yourselves when you're not speaking, and use the chat just to drop any questions as we go along. And I will be checking in throughout the night just to see if there's anything that our distinguished panelists can help us navigate. And yes, we are recording tonight. And the session for those who might not make it tonight is going to be available so that you don't get left behind. Tonight's topic is a very interesting one. It's one that comes up every single year, and it never gets any easier. And it's back to school. Dun, 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 dun. And we did not want to just talk at everybody about it, but tonight we wanted to engage you. And we wanted to engage you at the point where you actually have the ability to talk to our panelists. And it has been, we have 3 very distinct views of this, and I want to introduce them to you tonight. Our panel comes with a lot of diversity and from areas that we really believe each of you can experience or have experienced, and maybe get to see it from each other's angle. So we wanted to ask an advocate, an educator, and a mom. That's right, not just any mom, a mom who has had to navigate the IEP system, who has a kiddo who struggles. And so I think that is worth 1,000 words. So first of all, I'd like to introduce you to Morgan Bevell. Morgan is our founder and the CEO of Bevell's Advocate. It's a very special education advocacy organization that serves families nationwide. So Morgan has sat at more IEP tables than most of us. And I'm going to tell you that she knows what she's doing. Her life work has been to make every family feel like their kiddo counts, matters, and that there is open communication about within the circle of everyone that's involved, because we're all out for one thing. So welcome, Morgan. Sorry.
Thank you.
Wonderful. And our next is Deby. Deby is a special educator who has worked directly with students with disabilities in the classroom and through the IEP process. And she is here tonight to give us something we do not always get. Yes, honesty. Honesty like you've never had it before. So she's going to give you a look at it from the school's point of view. So that means Deby is here to give you the truth about what the interface with the IEP process is. So welcome, Deby.
Thank you.
Wonderful. And then, of course, finally, there is Thira. And Thira, thank you. She is a seasoned special education mom who has been navigating the IEP school system and the emotional marathon of advocacy for her own child for years. And so she is here because she is you. She has been in the seat and she has felt what you are feeling. And she's had a lot to say about it. So, Thira, we're so glad that you're here with us tonight. Thank you so very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, and I want to start with something very simple. I am going to ask each of you one question before we get into anything else. And in one word, tell me, how does back to school feel for families you know or the family you are? So, Morgan, let's start with you.
I would say unknown, because you're getting that new teacher, new setting, and although even if it's a new or a same school, um, things have always changed, whether it's just your child maturing or, like I said, new teacher, new classmates. And so I think there's a lot of anticipation for that buildup, whether that's good or bad. So yeah, I would say that my answer is unknown.
Unknown. Okay, so what about you, Deby? What's that one word from an educator's standpoint?
From an educator standpoint, that word is probably panic, because it is a new year and there's so much to do. And we only have like a few days to be back to school before the kids start back. And then it's just like a train that doesn't stop. So there's a little bit of panic going on.
Ooh. And so, Thira, your mom coming in, first day of school. What are we feeling? What's that one word?
Dread. Dreading the
Dread.
so it's a lot of stress, a lot of
Gotcha. So,
dreading. Yeah.
from that standpoint of dread, from that mom's perspective, that'll put us over into the very next question. If we're looking at, well, I actually want to just talk about your dread, Thira. Could you give me just a little bit more insight into what that dread is? And don't hold back. I mean, you're amongst friends. What is that dread? What conjures up? What is your kiddo going through, and what are you going through with that new introduction?
Yeah, so just as a side note, our daughter actually graduated a year ago, so we don't have it anymore. But in a lot of other situations, but we just, I guess we have had a lot of difficult experiences over the years. And so that's what made us kind of anxious, dreading that time. And and specifically in our daughter's case, because often she would be underestimated, because people thought, as we would ask for some accommodations or address difficult situations, they would kind of talk to us as if we were attacking them, which we were not. But we just, someone needed to advocate for a child, because if it wasn't us, who would do it? And so it would be personalized, as if we would be against them or against the teachers, and we really just wanted to advocate for a child and help her reach learn and grow and do the things that she really wants to do, just be supported in that.
That's great. And Thira, you actually have a lot of experience because you've come through the full cycle. So you are a wealth of information to moms because you've actually walked through the full scale and you've successfully had your daughter exit or enter the new phase of her life. So You are a wealth of knowledge, and I thank you so much for giving us that insight. That's really helpful. I
Yeah,
want to
thank you.
also
I actually,
go ahead.
oh,
No,
sorry. I actually, I had a teaching, I got a teaching certificate from my undergraduate, and then with graduate school, then I did leadership training for principals. So it's, but I definitely had the mother experience over the last
oh my
20
gosh,
years, the daughter.
that's very interesting. That means you're coming at it from multiple perspectives, and I'm sure that helps navigate the course even more. So we're excited as we move through this panel to hear from all of those aspects as a mom. Um, we started out with just that one word, but I want to get into the one that shows up in August when school supply list comes out. And you realize that for your family, this is not just a new backpack and a first day photo. There is so much more underneath it. And I hate to put you on the spot, Thira, but I think I want to start with you on this question. And I want to know what did back to school actually feel like in your household when it was time to go back? We got that one word, dread, but when you got to know, and of course you have had the full cycle of going first grade, second grade, third grade, but what did each of those years feel like?
Yeah, so it's very stressful, and it's stressful for the parents, and definitely stressful for the children. And so in our case, for our daughter, she would kind of feel things coming, and she was nervous about the changes because new teachers, new students, peers, and and she knows the challenges there have been. So she would be stressful, and so she would get aggressive at home. So she would kind of let out her anger on us, my husband and I. She would just be upset more, and so it's, the parents get get nervous about things coming up, and we could, these kids with disabilities, they're smart. They
Yeah,
also can feel the changes coming. And so it was difficult in that sense because we could see her, or we would know as the school year would start that she would get pretty, upset with us and angry. And so,
uh,
yeah.
that has got to be uncomfortable.
Am I
And I know
answering your question? Yeah.
you are. I mean, that's the emotional piece. So we definitely know that. And I love that you addressed it from her standpoint. I know mom has a standpoint, but you're really jockeying into the way she is processing this. And so that means a lot. So thank you so much for sharing that full round perspective. Um, Deby, I'm gonna flip that. And I'm gonna say, what does day one look like from inside the classroom? And what are teachers walking into, and what do they wish they knew about the families coming through that door?
I think it's a lot of similar feelings. There's a lot of excitement because things are new, but there's also a lot of anxiety and fear because with me, I don't have a class on day one because I teach resource groups. And so I'm spending most of my time trying to coordinate with the teachers and figure out my schedule. And that has a whole different level of stress of how to be able to work in all the time to serve all of these students with IEPs. But the teachers, they don't necessarily know who's going to be in their class and don't necessarily know the children with the IEPs. And so they ask me a lot because I usually know them. But I think what they wish that they knew is things that would help them make that student feel comfortable. To help them make that transition, the student make that transition in an easier or smoother way. And I think that's where, like, if there's a back to school night or something, that's really important because then the student is not walking into just a completely unknown situation. And so to to be able to come to back to school night and meet your teacher and see your room and see the stuff really can make a lot of difference for both sides, both the teacher and the families.
It does sound like that is key. I especially meet the teacher, even from my standpoint, is when we get to go in, we get to meet the teacher, we get to see everything. But I would imagine if your child is on an IEP, having that conversation between Thira and you would
Right.
really help. She's feeling anxious, she's a little on edge. So that first interface between teacher and parent to talk about the emotional overwhelm that their kiddo may be having, or even the personal overwhelm that mom's having about moving into a new grade, and how can we partner and how can we talk to each other. I'm sure from Morgan's standpoint as an advocate, that is really important. So Morgan, tell us, what are the calls that you're getting and what do they have in common? So in regards to that advocacy standpoint and what patterns?
Yeah, I think it kind of is summed up between what Thira and Deby just said. I think those feelings of anxiety and panic, and that unknown, and everything is changing. And so families are just mainly concerned at the beginning of the year that, the services will be implemented and their child will be supported without any delay. And so they just want to make sure, a lot of times, like, okay, how do I get in contact with the school? How do I know that my student or my child's teacher is going to know that they have these accommodations, XYZ. But a lot of that kind of back to school time brings that panic and anxiety that Thira and Deby have both touched on. And so I think that kind of translate over to our advocacy standpoint as well, of just helping make sure everyone's on the same page and have that smooth transition into the new school year.
So I just want to ask, especially what you just said, Morgan, when you are coming in on that first night in regards to meet the teacher, should mom and dad expect for teacher to know the IEP from jump start, or is that a little too much to ask of a teacher to be like, oh, I read up all about your kiddo, I know the IEP right on point? What should we adjust our expectations to so that we're not disappointed when we walk into that room?
I think it's important to remember teachers have lives and teachers have summers too. And so they're not, necessarily studying those IEPs over the summer. But I think it is fair and legal for them to be implemented from day one. Those services should be in place. And so that's why meet the teacher or back to school night, or a lot of those early kind of meetings are super important, because you can touch base early before day one of class and get acquainted with the teacher and make sure all of those things. And most of the time teachers are great about getting those up and going and organized. Like Deby said, it's a lot of organization and scrambling behind the scenes, but I mean, more times than not, they're on top of it and getting it done.
Deby, you had something to add to that?
Yeah, I spend the days like I will go back. Our teacher contract starts this Friday, so I'll have about 3 days before school starts and the students start to come. I spend that time as a special ed teacher printing off the IEP summaries and marking them. Here's the accommodations, here's the time, and giving them to the classroom teachers. So I try to just walk them through it a little bit. They may know the student from just seeing them in the school, but it's a little different when they're in their classroom, and just pointing out that here's some strengths, here's some weaknesses, here's how I want to work with you this year about this student. So
I'm so very glad that you brought that up, and because one of the things I want to know, just from my standpoint, is just directly, there are a lot of families in the community, especially families who have been dismissed. I would love to say that we've had excellent experiences across the board, but there are those who have felt dismissed or ignored or failed by a system before, and you get all of that on you on the very first day. They come in sort of kind of defensive, um, and when it's about back to school time, and you just feel like, oh my gosh, this is going to be hard. I feel from Thira's standpoint, from your standpoint, bringing this all together, and then you have Morgan who's doing the advocacy behind it. I just want to know, how do you carry that going into a new year? How do you rectify, things that happened in the past and keeping the main thing, which is this year? So how do you sort of kind of forget the old and move forward with the new? Because you're in the same environment usually, with teachers sort of kind of knowing, especially if this kiddo's been there all throughout and they are growing, and you might have heard something from another teacher. So, or you might have heard something as a parent that says, oh, she never did anything great for us. How do you navigate that? And how would you potentially bring Morgan into that to sort of kind of make it better? I just want to know from each of your points of view.
Is this for me to answer first?
You're first, Deby, because
Okay,
you're
I'll be
on
first.
camera now.
I think we as teachers have to really kind of start with a blank slate. We have to, especially if it's a new student, like if I get a new student, I don't really know what's happened in their past and what this family's experience has been. And so I try to take it from the standpoint of making this the best year possible. And I take that standpoint for all of my children. And I think that we have to do that. We can't really rely on what last year's teacher tells us, or what the gossip of the school tells us, or maybe some struggles that we've seen in the hallways, because we don't really know the whole story. And so I try to tell teachers, don't listen to last year's teachers. If they start telling you all these horror stories, don't listen to that, because here are the things I know work with these students. And if you really get to know this child, you'll understand why this happens sometimes, or he really likes this. If you play into that, he'll listen to you for everything. You just have to kind of learn that. And so we really have to start the year with just an open mind for all the students with IEPs and students without.
Sounds like a building block. From grade to grade, you can unlock a kid's abilities as you go up. That's a really good standpoint, Deby. Thira, have you ever had that experience where you felt like baggage from the past has come into the present space with your daughter? And if so, how did you solve that or address it?
So regarding baggage of the past, I guess I think there are a lot of people who don't include, like our daughter specifically has Down syndrome, don't include them with the typically developing peers. And it was always really important to us that she was included. And there are a lot of people who have always experienced in the past that students with disabilities are separate, like in a separate classroom. And but so my attitude on that is I think everybody can learn. Everybody needs to learn. I'm learning. The teachers are learning, everybody around me. And so I give everybody the chance to learn and to grow, just like I needed in my life. And so I've seen it over the years that, teachers become open to the inclusion. Some people believe inclusion and had never done it, So I'm happy to teach them and support them. And I 100% agree. You know, teachers are underpaid. They're often overworked, and I'm very aware of that. So I try to get to know them and build relationships and give them a chance. Just like I'm not perfect, and I need need people to give me second chances and learn and grow. And so so specifically what I do there is I really try to get to know the teachers and the people who work with our daughter and build a relationship and get to know them, and I I express my appreciation for all they do, and because you know we're a team and we're gonna work on this together. And yeah,
I love that.
but I guess the overarching thing again is that we all can learn. I think the really difficult situation is if you have a teacher who thinks he or she already knows it all. That's when
Oh,
it's when they think, oh, what's this parent trying to tell me?
I'm
I
trying to tell
think
you
if
about
we
my
all have an
kids.
open mind and learn together. Yeah.
That is you very powerful statement where you say we're all learning, and that I think is the
And I think,
key intricate part
and
where
like
you say,
some people said before, meeting together, like the back to school night, and hopefully, I mean, the more contact, the more communication, the better before. So if there's some way to get to know them and, you know, them to get to know your child, I think that's really important. And just, yeah, you know, don't hold it against people if they don't know it all yet, because I
that
don't
is
either.
that is really good. Very good advice. Morgan, you've been at the table with a diverse group of of clientele that run the gamut. And so your perspective on this is really interesting. So if you could just give us some insight as well on how to handle those issues.
Yeah, and I think right off the bat, our advocacy style is not to come in and steamroll the school team at all. I mean, I think it can be intimidating and put up some walls sometimes for the school team when a family brings an advocate, but that is not our intention and that is not our role. And so I think. I mean, I want to echo what has already been said. I encourage my families to start with a clean slate. I mean, it's a new teacher and new atmosphere. And a lot of the times you don't know what it is that'll make it click, but sometimes things just fall into place and it's an amazing year and it's nothing compared to the year before. And um, other times, not so much, but we work through that as it comes. And I just remember at the end of the day, it's an IEP team. And so I try to operate with my clients as such and respect those on the other side of the table and really make it a collective effort because at the end of the day, we're all there to best serve the child. And so putting our heads together and figuring out the best case scenario for that student oftentimes takes that contention off of the adults or between the adults and just focusing our efforts towards, you know, what can we do best for the student to help them be successful.
You know, I'd like to first of all say thank you all for going there and being vulnerable and letting us know from your perspectives. I want the families that are watching here tonight to hear it clearly that you are not overreacting. The system is genuinely complex, and the fact that you've shown up here tonight means you're already doing the work. So let's talk about what that work really looks like practically. Okay, so let us get practical. School is starting. or it has already started. Either way, the IEP is the document everything else is built around. So let us talk about what families should actually be doing with it right now. Morgan's, I want to know from your perspective, if a parent came to you today and said, I have no idea where to start with my child with the IEP, what is the very first thing you would tell them?
You're not alone. It's super overwhelming and complicated, and it can feel like a lot. But there are a lot of great resources out there, and we can get that ball rolling really easily. I would encourage them to call a meeting with the school, and to just kind of voice some of those concerns about whatever it may be. If it's, oh, they're falling behind in math, or reading's not clicking, or whatever the concern might be. Bring it to the school, and that gets the evaluation process going, and everything kind of starts from there. But I understand it looks like a huge mountain to climb, and it can be super scary and unfamiliar, and you're definitely not alone or crazy for feeling that way.
So let's talk rights right now, because a lot of families do not know what they actually are entitled to under the IDEA. So Morgan, can you walk us through a few of the big ones that are most relevant at the start of a school year?
Yeah, I think I love to encourage families to have an IEP meeting at the beginning of the school year, just to, again, to have those touch points with the team, get everyone on the same page. And a lot of families don't know that you do have the right to request a meeting at any time, even if it's not your annual review time. You can call a team meeting and um, voice your concerns and your hopes for the school year, and if anything's changed over the summer, and kind of start the school year on a good start like that. Um, you do have the right to bring anyone, whether it's an advocate or your neighbor or a grandma, grandpa, whoever it may be. Sometimes just having someone in that meeting with you adds to that support and comfort, and just kind of makes them a little bit easier to sit through sometimes. Um, Another great one is that you do not have to sign the IEP right at the end of the meeting. Sometimes I think there's a feeling of pressure that it has to be done right there, but you absolutely, it's a lot of information. Um, and I sometimes need to process on my own, and it takes a little bit longer. And so you can take it and look it over, make sure that everything's good before signing it. And
Ask
yeah.
you this, Morgan, do you suggest that if you are a parent that's going in um, to review an IEP with a teacher or with the school group, that you do take it and then seek, professional services of an individual who's done it several times or has a different perspective? Does that bring a lot more light? Or because you mentioned I could do a friend, or I could do you suggest that you get with someone who understands the process, or what is the purpose of having that other person in the room?
I think it depends. Obviously, I mean, I'm an advocate by trade, and so I'm always going to recommend and feel strongly about that, and having our expertise there. But I think even just having a neighbor or grandma or whoever it may be, for even that moral support for yourself as the parent, because again, contentions can be high, emotions can be high. Sometimes I've had parents sit in there in those meetings and not remember what they even wanted to talk about because things get so clouded and overwhelming. And so even just having, like, cousin Sarah with you, hey, can you help me? Here's my notes, help guide the conversation. I think just having that moral support, so you don't feel like you're going in it alone, can be invaluable.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Thira, Deby, just real quick, from the educator side of that, what does it look like when a family comes in prepared? What makes that job easier, and more importantly, what makes things better for the student?
Okay, I will answer that. I'm going to add to what Morgan said, is that some parents might want to consider bringing in someone to the IEP that possibly works with the student as well. Like if you have maybe a babysitter or a
Mm,
nanny or a family member that tends the student while you're at work or something like that. Sometimes that is also very helpful to have that person brought to the IEP so they can gain an understanding of things we're working on, what helps and everything like that. So that was just an addition to what Morgan was saying.
that's really good to know. Cool.
As far as when a family comes prepared, I love it when families come prepared. I love it when families come and they participate and they talk. So often I get told by families that I'm the expert, so they're just going to trust everything that I say, which is fine. I am an expert in the IEP process, but I am not an expert on your child. That's
Mm,
your job. that's
wonderful.
that's not my job. And so a parent holds more expertise about the student than I do. And so I love it when parents come in and they say things like, we're having a difficult time with this, or I'd really like to see us work on this year, and help. I have my own goal ideas based on the things that I've, assessments and academics and everything. And I do propose those goals. But I love it when parents also bring ideas to the table and say, well, that goal, that's a good goal, but we're not too interested. We're more worried about this.
Mm,
And that just kind of helps drive the IEP, because if I'm addressing things that parents are concerned about, then the hope is that the parents will also help the student work on those things as well, because it's important to them. And I want this IEP to be important for everybody.
that makes it. So let me ask this, and Thira, I'm going to put you on the spot again, but here it is. Be honest with us. In your early years, what did you not know that you wish someone would have told you? What mistakes do you see other parents sometimes making that you just want to say, no, don't do that?
Yeah, I've been thinking about that question. I actually, I kind of read a lot when our daughter was born and talked to a lot of people. But I agree with what Morgan and Deby said. I think bringing people in and just having support there, I
Mhm.
think is the key. And I promise Morgan didn't ask me to say that, but I wish I could have had Morgan there always. So having an advocate like her, I think I was just I came to an IEP meeting. Well, it wasn't quite an IEP meeting yet, but kind of an IEP pre-meeting.
Mhm.
That the people in there was like IEP meeting who has a son on the autism spectrum, and so um and I feel like it wasn't even just what all the people said, and I'd actually invited Morgan and her a therapist was there, and I was there, and I feel like just them knowing all these people were there, they were prepared. They had all these people there. They were very well staffed, people who could make decisions. So I feel like them knowing you're bringing like the advocate was going to be there, and her friend and the therapist. I feel like I would say they were more on their A game because they knew
Because you brought an
people
advocate
would be
who
there.
knows the system.
Yeah,
That's
I
a
think it
great
helped.
point.
And the
So if
other
somebody
thing,
really knows what
one
they're
thing,
doing, they got to really prepare.
um, the other thing I was going to add here is I've also had situations where it didn't go so well, and at some point my husband and I would talk to these people, and we really tried. I think I'm a pretty positive person. And we had a situation with a daughter where they were not supportive really at all, and ultimately it was very stressful. And ultimately we it was interesting because actually one of the people on the special education team then said, I'm going to have you talk to the principal, really upset. Kind of like, you were in trouble, you're going to talk to the principal. But then, I mean, I know I don't know as much about as Morgan, but I know quite a few things about special education. I've been to a lot of conferences and talked to people, but it turns out the principal for the meeting actually invited the head of special education of the district as well to the meeting, because she was concerned that we were going to sue them over what had happened, because when she heard what had happened. So they were like afraid of us, which we didn't have, we weren't going to sue them. but she realized, it wasn't right. So, sometimes you have to bring someone else in, as it may be a long, stressful road, and bringing someone else in, it could be, someone like, I didn't have Morgan there, but talking to the principal, talking to the director of special education of the district, they were very supportive of us and agreed with us, and they were apologized for what some of the administrators and teachers had been doing. So sometimes,
it sounds like you have a group that was very team oriented, and that seems to be the theme that is reoccurring, which is just creating a team around you. And so once you have that group in place, whether it's bringing in an advocate or whether it's an individual that is on your team, let's say, we know that the intention is to set great goals for the year. And we have talked about what to do when you get there. Now I want to talk about how to set the year up on purpose, because there is a difference between surviving back to school and actually going into it with a plan. So Morgan, how do you help families define what a good year looks like before the year even starts? And not just what the IEP says, but what does success actually mean for the child that you're working for and the family that you're representing?
Yeah, I think it all depends on the family. I mean, the parents again are the experts of the kiddo and know them best, and so um, I kind of feed off of them and what their goals are, what their hopes are for their child in that school year, and then through that I would help them kind of make objectives and action items in order to get to those goals. So if you're looking for your child to, be more comfortable making friends, then maybe we implement some, social skills or support like that through the school, and you can communicate that to the IEP team as well. But I feed off of the parents with that because, again, they know them best. And so I have these conversations with them on exactly that, what their goals are and what they hope for their child to accomplish in the coming school year. And then we hit the ground running.
And so, Deby, from the educator side, you have Morgan walk in, and you also have a wonderful parent like Thira that walks in. What does intentional transitioning planning look like at the start of the year? And then what are teachers doing or should be doing to set standards up for the first few weeks that are equally communicated to the parent and anyone who may be coming in to help advocate?
I have had Morgan walk in on my meetings. I've had Morgan in several meetings.
I gotcha.
And look, we're still friends.
And we're still friends.
Good.
That's because you're a teen at this point.
It
It's
is.
one goal, getting that kid the best education they could possibly get.
I think that making that transition into school, I really think that communication is the biggest key
Yeah.
for anything. And that if a parent is afraid or worried, that needs to be communicated. And I know sometimes we as just a people are afraid of admitting we're scared or admitting we don't understand. But I think that it needs to happen. I want the parents to understand. I want them to feel comfortable and understand all of that. So for me, getting into a transition for the students is going over, looking at the IEPs, looking at the goals again. I've had a summer to kind of forget about it. So I want to look at them. I want to look at where they were at the end of last year and remind myself, oh yeah, this is where they were. So I can kind of pick that up and see, well, what did they maintain over the summer? Where do I need to start for this summer? But as far as helping each other, I think that communication really is just the key ingredient.
I think you're right. I have a very interesting question, mainly for Thira, because one of the things that we know, Thira, is that you and your daughter have successfully, your family has successfully graduated from the beginning education. And I wanted to talk about students themselves for a minute, especially for older kids. At what point should students start being involved in their own IEP process? And how do families start building that self-advocacy muscle early? I want to hear everybody's input on that question, but mainly Thira, how do you involve your kiddo, or how did you involve her in her own advocacy for herself?
I think it starts when they're really young. For our daughter, our advocating was, we were always trying to help her with what she communicated to us, what was important to her. And so early on, like she wouldn't wouldn't be wouldn't be necessarily in the meeting to with the teachers, because it's also difficult when we would talk about all her weaknesses, all the help she needs. It's not her favorite setting, to talk about that. But we always, we would listen to her, and most of the decisions most of the things we would ask for is something that she had communicated that she wanted and that she needed. And like everybody said, I 100% agree also with Deby that the communication is the key. And we would encourage her, like in the class, and we would ask the teachers what we tried to have really close communication with the teachers to see what she's communicating there from them, and also hear from the teachers. Like we always said, well, and we perfect, so we would love to hear how we can support the teacher from our side, because we see her much more than the teacher sees her. Just work as a team and communicate. And our daughter has for many years now, she texts. She has a phone and she texts, and she will herself, she would text with the teachers things she needed, and she would communicate it herself. We really encourage that with our students. And so she's learned from that. So she
It's
shouldn't have said, but yeah.
it sounds like you said, communications and also teaching her to communicate what her needs are is plus. I did want to just back up a little bit and just make note of this, not necessarily a discussion on it, but we do know that on the forum that within our community, there are families who there are language barriers that are there. So English is not the first language, or there are real cultural differences between the family and the school team, and communications is a little more difficult or complicated. So I do want to just ask one quick question. Deby, what should schools be doing and in order to bring that process along and to be able to, where communications is not an easy process because there's a language barrier there. Any feedback from the panel as a whole?
I think we as a school have to be really aware of our translation services.
Mm,
We do have, for our school in particular, we do have a business that we work with that we call into and say, we're holding this meeting, we need this language. And we have a translator on the phone that can then talk to the parent as needed. And another thing that I do, and I know I'm sure it's not the greatest, but I do use Google Translate a lot when I write emails. And if I'm sending out a general email to all of my families, then I do make sure that I include the other languages that might be, a student or students are using at home, that I know is being spoken at home, so that is included. And I do try to communicate with parents in their language. I've also used, sometimes we've got teachers and other people at the school that speak those languages too. And so I've used the help of other teachers with that as well. But I think we need to make every effort to make sure that they are getting communicated to and with in their language, and that the documents are being sent home in their language. It does them no good if I send the documents home in English.
that's true. That's
So
very,
they don't know what it says. And so what's the point? So
very, very true, Deby. Thank you for that input. I just wanted to make sure we touched on that. My last question of the evening is for families who have had a hard time the year before. Maybe services were not delivered, maybe relationships with the school were damaged. We heard from Thira that they thought they were going to sue because they sort of kind of screwed up the year before. Maybe they're just issues that come up. How do you start fresh when it's a hard start? How do you start fresh? I just want to that's our last question for the night. And I just want to hear from each of your perspectives. How do you do a Wednesday?
I'll start. I think that summing up everything that we've talked about, again, being transparent in that communication, and also starting with as much as possible that clean slate going into the school year, and trying to leave as much of that in that past school year, because again, most of the time you're dealing with a different teacher, different situation, and it's not fair to the educator to carry that over to them either. And as Deby said too, trying to stay out of that teacher gossip, and focusing just on what's in front of you as well. But I think manifesting too. I mean, I have some clients that I work with. We've had a really ugly last year, and they've already reached out and sent an email to the whole team like, hey, like this, we're here, we're excited for a new year, let's make it a great one. And I think that just really sets the tone too, and cuts past a lot of that awkward and contentiousness. And so just trying to, again, bring that team spirit, and just remember that you're all there for a little child, and it's really in their best interest for everyone to be on the same page going forward.
Really good. What do you think, Debbie?
Just the same thing. I would think for sure, especially if this is maybe like a new student in the school, to definitely reach out to the principal, to the special educator, the classroom teacher, let them know maybe some of the things that you experienced last year and what you'd like to see different. Again, with the communication. And I think if this is a student that is already in the school and last year was not a great year, again, like Morgan said, just every year is a new year. Every
Right.
teacher is a different teacher. Sometimes there are personality clashes between teachers and parents and everything, and that happens. It doesn't mean it's going to happen again.
Right.
And same thing with students. Sometimes, obviously we've all felt it. You like some teachers better than you like others. So that's okay. We can deal with it. And but I think just being honest and saying, wow, let's not have another year like last year. Let's see where we can go forward and make this year better and how we can do it.
And Thira, you have the last say. What do you think about that?
I think, like I said before, we all can change. We believe people can change. We can change, our kids change, teachers can change, and we have to give each other that grace that we can improve. And so I
I couldn't have said it any
think
better.
if we're open to
Definitely couldn't think we're having a technical issue with here, but I couldn't have said it any better. Just keeping the mindset that we're here for kids, for our kiddos to make sure they get the best education. And it's an ever-changing landscape. Education always has, it's a purpose, is to grow. And that was well put, Thira. I also wanted to just take a moment to thank each and every one of our panelists tonight. Morgan, Debbie, Thira, you gave this community something real tonight. And there are three different perspectives, three different seats at the table, and all of it is in service of families who need to hear it. So thank you so very much for taking your time and your energy and joining us tonight. If anything from tonight's conversation raised questions for your specific situation, if you're watching now, or if you need someone in your corner, there is Bevell's Advocate is here, and you can reach out to them at bevelsadvocate.com, or you can email info@bevelsadvocate.com, and that information is going to be in our chat right now. And before we go, we have a Facebook community group just for this space. And that is where we keep the conversation going between sessions and where we share resources and where next month's topic will be announced. So the link is in the chat right now. So join us there and drop a comment so we know how to make it better. We again thank you so very much for showing up for your kid tonight. And that is not a small thing. We'll see you next time, next month. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you.